Welcome to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, the home for financial advice in a language you can understand. Created by Marc Freedman of Freedman Financial, he and his team of certified financial planner professionals will discuss timely topics that help individuals and families make smart financial decisions. And now, get ready for this week's edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents. We are here today to provide you with financial advice in a language you can understand. I'm Marion Gilman.
And I'm Christian Karcher.
And we're from Freedman Financial, as you probably know since you're watching this video. And each and every week we do a video cast. And again, we're just trying to impart some knowledge about financial advice, but doing it so you can understand it. So many people don't do that. A lot of the financial people that you listen to on the radio and all, it goes over your head. And so we try not to do that. But we had an interesting topic we were going to talk a little bit about today, because we are financial planners. And one of the things that we have learned is that financial planning is not a one and done situation. Right, Christian?
That's right. A lot of times what we plan for is not what truly happens in the future. And
Absolutely.
We've got to make some adjustments along the way. And it's kind of the fun of what we do. It keeps it interesting. It's not just setting up a financial plan and letting it play itself out over the next 30 years. It's an ongoing process.
So, for many of you, there are different phases of life. Whereas, you're a child growing up, and then you might go to college or not. You get your first job. You might get married. You might have kids. So there are all these different phases. And during those different phases, you need different, you have a different lifestyle. Your lifestyle changes. As much as you think my lifestyle is going to stay the same, this is what I want to focus on. This is how I want to live my life. Unexpected things happen, right?
Absolutely. I tell people to try to think about back 10 years ago. Whatever age you are, 10 years ago, what were your priorities? What were the things you would have told someone, oh, I want to spend money on this? And very often people don't think about that. And so one of the fun things I think with our financial plans is we get to capture a moment in time where someone says, this is what I'm really prioritizing. And then we get to go back to it 5-10 years later and say, this is what we said was going to happen. And they kind of look at us like, really? We said we were going to...
we were going to do that?
Particularly, I think it's interesting when someone will say, oh, I want to retire at age 65. And then 65 gets closer and they say, you know what? I'm actually really enjoying what I'm doing at work. I'm going to go a little bit longer. And so they'll push the date out. So all of these different levers are always changing, and it always impacts your financial plan.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, Christian, 10 years ago, did you know you'd be living in Boston?
I did not know I would be living in Boston. Let's see. Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, it was all actually, it might have been potential, because I think 10 years ago was my, I guess I'm dating myself here, but was my senior year of college.
Okay.
And I knew that I had a job lined up in Wisconsin.
And
I knew Jessica had a job lined up in Boston. And we said, we'll figure it out at some point. So there was always a possibility. But just like that, it was very
11
uncertain.
Years ago, right?
11 years ago, no idea where I would be.
There you go. Which, it's funny, right?
It really is. And a lot of things have changed since then. Families changed. I have 4 nieces and nephews that did not exist at the time. So,
well, there you go.
So many different changes, priorities. Life goes on.
That's right. And, it's interesting because so many people, will say, oh, I want to have a big family. And then it turns out they don't. They have a small family, or no, they don't have children. Some, because their priorities might change. Or some people might say, I'm having 1 child, and they end up with 5, Before you just never know what twists and turns life might take. Sometimes people think, I'm not going to travel at all. And then all of a sudden they go somewhere and love it. So now they're traveling all the time.
Right, absolutely. And then there's the world happening around us. Sometimes
That's right.
market returns end up being really strong. And you have to start going, okay, well, because of what's happened here, I'm now in a much better spot than I ever anticipated. What does that mean? Do I spend more? Do I retire earlier? Do I gift money? What am I going to do? And now you have to reanalyze your priorities again and try to think about what your priorities might be still another 5 and 10 years down the line.
And, that's happened to us a lot recently. We have seen truly spectacular returns over the past 3 years, much larger than we would have ever expected, and certainly larger than what we anticipate in our planning process. So what has happened now, we find our clients find that they're in a very different situation. Although they were very comfortable with a certain spending plan 3 years ago, now they find, well, not only has that spending plan worked out really well, but we can spend more. Now the question comes up, do we want to? Do we want to change our lifestyle and spend more money?
And a lot of times people say yes. I think one of the things that often happens, especially when you see your accounts growing year over year, and you have an annual meeting with us where we say, okay, here's what it looks like today. You guys can spend a little bit more probably given, the situation.
Right.
And you start feeling more confident. Some people go, okay, I really can spend a bit more. Some people spend too much, and then we've got to reel them in. But there's always that balance, and it's always interesting because some people say, I couldn't possibly imagine spending more. And we'll give them ideas, and we'll say, well, you could fly business class. And they go, oh, no, I could never do that. So it's all about what you value, what you're going to spend money on. But it's important to at least have the discussion to say, here's where we are today. It might be a little different than we projected 5 years ago. What do you want the next 5, 10, 20 years to look like?
And, there are many people who might receive unexpected money, whether it's inheritance money or, some kind of money that they had never expected. And we've seen that also recently, where individuals have gotten inheritances that were considerably more than what they ever imagined. So now, all of a sudden, they get to think about, well, back in the day, we were talking about having a second home. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we want to do? And this becomes, we can have the discussion. Is this a possibility for you? Right. And factor it in, because back then, it might never have been a possibility.
Right. And one of the analogies I think of in this context is, so Jessica and I have a garden plot that's at a community garden. Yeah. And so every year we make a little plan and we say, okay, we're going to plant this here, this here, this here, because we try to get the sun right, whatever. We tweak it each year. But then every year something happens where, a tomato fell in the wrong place the year before, and we look up in June and there's this massive tomato plant growing in a corner that we didn't even plant. And now we have to adjust the whole rest of the bed. But your plan is very much like that garden, where if you've got a surprise plant in there, well, we've got to
what do you do?
We've got to adjust the plan around it to make the most of what you have.
That's right. That's right. You know what? You don't want to pull it out and be done with it.
That's right. Especially if it's a good plant.
There you go. I mean, keep it going, right? But there are so many things that people encounter in life. And, the other thing is that there are a lot of people who tell us they want to travel. And when I, get older, I'm going to retire and I'm going to travel. And what are your thoughts about that, Christian, putting off traveling until you retire?
I would definitely say don't put off travel. If you're in a good financial position, right. travel while you're healthy. You never know when health will make a turn.
That's right.
But also, I tell people to try to plan for more travel than you think, just on the planning side of things. Sure. We have a lot of people who say, oh, I will retire at 65, we'll travel for the next 8 years, and then we'll take the traveling out of the budget because we won't be traveling at 78. But we know so many people who are traveling into their 80s. I know Barry has been traveling a lot, and he's in his 80s. I mean, people are living longer and living healthier lives for even longer. Make sure you're not selling yourself short on experiences later in life as well.
Yeah, and there is a fine balance because you don't want to over overspend in the early years or not save, spend wildly when you're younger and not save along the way so you have nothing when you retire. On the other hand, there is a fine line there where you say, well, we can start to travel a little bit earlier. We do have the resources to do that. And while we are still healthy, we want to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
But so many things can change during anyone's lifetime. And you need to be ready to adjust to those changes. So how do we do that on the fly, Christian?
Well, I think for one, we have so much experience seeing people go through these same questions, same struggles, same situations.
You are not alone.
Many of our clients have the same questions.
Exactly.
And we get to see it in a rearview mirror as well, because we've seen clients who have had those things and they made one decision or another, and now they're in a different situation. And we can say, here's kind of what we've seen in the past. So that's number one. And then number two is because we've built a financial plan for all of our clients as a baseline.
Yeah, and this is through a robust software that we have.
Right, and we can make projections and we can say, okay, now we can say, this might be the base case, but what if you want to buy the second home or travel more?
Let's switch it up.
Let's switch it up and say, we're going to take a little bit more money now. And we can look at what that does to your projected wealth over your lifetime and allow you to balance, okay, what are you willing to give up versus take?
And it's always a trade-off. But it's really, it's interesting. If you can at least have a view of what this might look like over time, it gives you a lot more comfort in making that decision one way or another and saying, you know what, I am willing to give this up in order to have that, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I think the confidence is key, and having the data to back it up is how we get there.
Absolutely. So if now's the time for you to get serious about your money and you want to look at various alternatives in your planning process, please give us a call, 978-531-8108. That's 978-531-8108. Or you can visit us on the web, and that is freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
2 E's and a D.
Financial.com. Scroll to the bottom of any of the pages, put in your name and email address, and that will sign you up for our weekly newsletter. Comes out at 10:30 every Friday morning. Since 2009, we've been writing it. So, and once again, that also provides you with financial advice in a language you can understand. Slurring those two words together, what can I tell you? And so that'll do it for us today. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and thanks for listening.
Talk soon.
During today's episode of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, your host may have discussed specific financial planning and investment ideas that are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Please remember that investing involves risk and may include loss of principal. Always consult a certified financial planner professional, qualified attorney, or tax advisor prior to investing to determine what is appropriate for you. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.